How's it going, y'all? Hope you're doing well. Um, I'm in my usual funk whenever my wife and my kid uh, kind of leave me on a job site. Kind of in a little bit of a miserable funk where I always get this way. I don't want to make it sound like I'm depressed or anything because I don't want people worried about me. But that is something people who've experienced like a traumatic brain injury and stuff like that, we are kind of prone to bouts of depression and stuff. So I'm kind of just in a funk because I really just miss my wife and my kid. I shouldn't be here in Southern California for very much longer. I should be heading home relatively soon. So, but I figured I'd just BS with y'all a little bit while I'm sitting in my hotel room talking about the latest and greatest thing with Patrick. I saw that he has finally paid what he owed to the Quasi guy. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, "Wow, that Quasi guy made like $82,000." He didn't make any money. Like that's not going to him. That's going to his lawyers and stuff. That's the amount of money that he had to spend to basically defend himself and defend the users of his website. Like, really, in this entire saga with Pat and shit involving that forum, no one won but Quasi's lawyers, really, which kind of drives home the point of just how miserable it is when you get sued. Um, I personally have never been sued because of the nature of my work. I have been pulled into civil cases and stuff involving really, really huge, very expensive mega projects and stuff, and and it's just a miserable experience all around, like going into the legal system and all. And of course, all of this could have been prevented if Patrick showed the same level of self-control and I would guess adult-like behavior that my 10-year-old has, where it's, hey man, because I remember my son when he was in daycare. I think it was daycare. He was really really young at the time, and a little girl in his daycare just straight up told him to his face she didn't like him, and my son was devastated at this. I think it was probably the first time ever he interacted with someone that just told him to his face, I don't like you. And my son didn't know how to take this, and it really, really messed him up for a day, kind of thing. It was one of those awkward things where I had to sit him down and explain to him, son, you're a good boy. You're a nice young man. You're going to grow into a wonderful adult. But sometimes you will run into people that they just don't like you. And you've got, you can either um, ignore it, B, let it destroy you, or C, try to see what they're saying and maybe grow from it. In the course of my young son's situation, within 24 hours, I don't think he remembered this interaction with me. And I fairly certain, I'm about 99% sure that him and this young girl became fast friends. But it was the first time ever that he ever interacted with somebody that didn't like him, kind of thing, or just told him. Probably was something along the lines of like she pushed him down or something, and like he just never experienced that before. But he grew from it, kind of thing. It's something we all have to do, unless you're a stunted adult, in which case you're a 45-year-old, however old Patrick is, and you just don't know how to deal with this other than just like reading out kind of thing, and just you destroy everything around you in in a self-destructive whirlwind of suck, I guess. Um, I really, really, really feel bad for Nikki and her family because I think they're the ones that had to pay for it. I will say this right now, even with the income that I make, $82,000 is not something to, shake a stick at. Um, you could send a kid to college on $82,000 or whatever, however much money it was. And what's really, really just mind blowing to me is even when Pat initially lost that case, it's one of those things. It's like there's two rules when it comes to civil cases. One, don't ever talk about it. Just don't talk about it. Don't talk about it publicly, and don't even talk about it to your family and stuff. I remember when my employer was involved in a lawsuit, and I was going to have to give like a deposition about it. And like my employer wasn't even being sued, but of course our corporate lawyers even sat me down and said like, we don't want you talking about this. Don't talk about this to your family. Don't talk about this to anyone because if you talk about it, they could get pulled into this kind of thing. Whereas Patrick was talking about this case the entire time. And then the other golden rule is if you are not going to continue the fight, like if you lose a case, you settle up. You go before the court, you figure out how much money it's going to cost, and you start making payments for it. That is what you have to do. And he didn't do that, and of course the costs just ballooned up, and blew up. He just wasted everybody's time and shit. This whole thing was just a big, massive, stupid, insanely stupid fiasco that just wasted everybody's time and it wasted. I was going to say it wasted Pat's money, but I don't think it was his money. I suspect that it was his in-laws' money, kind of thing. So it's just really, really stupid. Like the money thing really bothers me just from the perspective of Pat's going to do the thing that shitty deadbeats always do. It's what my parents did. And that is he's going to hit a point where his kid is hitting adult milestones, and that's when it's going to hit Patrick that he could have been involved in his daughter's life, and he's going to try to force his way into his daughter's life. And I've seen that happen to people that I've tried to help through my volunteer with the VA, and I've personally experienced that with my own birth parents. And it just doesn't work out. I know there are people out there that are like, how can you not ever forgive your parents kind of thing, no matter what they did. And I think for folks that have never been in that situation, they don't really quite understand what ends up happening. It's one of those things where the relationship is dead and you don't want to reopen that wound. You don't, especially when you're a kid that essentially you're abandoned by one or both of your parents. You just don't want to reopen that wound, no matter what anyone else tries to tell you. In my own case, like my wife is, to this day, my wife has always tried to encourage me to reestablish relationships with my birth parents since they're both alive. And this is arguably the one thing that my wife and I don't agree on at all. Where I don't want her, myself, or my son being exposed to the chaos and the dysfunction and the criminality and so on that is related, that just comes in the territory with being exposed to my birth parents and my birth siblings. Whereas my wife, her from Poland, she has a wonderful relationship with her siblings. She has a wonderful relationship with her parents, and I have a wonderful relationship with all of them. Like, it's kind of crazy to me how different it is between her parents and my parents, my birth parents. How it's just stark the effect that drugs and alcoholism and mental illness and stuff that's all untreated, all people in denial about it, how destructive it can be. And in Pat's own case, I don't know. I really don't know how much of, maybe he's a raging alcoholic, maybe he isn't. I do think that Pat should go to therapy. I think he should probably go to alcohol treatment. But ultimately, you can't force someone to do that. That's one of the big reasons why I've never reestablished any kind of relationship with anyone in my family, to expose myself to those risks, because ultimately none of them want to change for the better, and if they don't want to change for the better, I am not going to be a patsy to just, you know, try to absolve them from their own destructive behaviors and stuff. But I do believe it's going to happen. Like, Pat's going to be one of those guys that, like, his daughter's getting married, his birth daughter's getting married, or it's like her high school graduation or her college graduation. Patrick is going to try to show up, and he's going to do something really stupid. Like, give her the keys to his piece of shit four-cylinder, broke down Mustang. Be like, see, I'm giving you a car for your wedding. And she's like, great. It's like a 20-year-old car that barely runs. That totally makes up for the fact that you abandoned me and my mother, and you just left us to survive on our own. That's really great. Really, really, I really appreciate that. That totally makes up for things, because that's the kind of crap that my parents pulled. My mom tried to do something like that after I got married. She just, out of the blue, just decided that she was going to try to reestablish a relationship with me. It wasn't even my marriage; it was my son being born. Like, out of the blue, she was trying to force me to reestablish contact with her and my dad and my four siblings. And I'm like, no, it's not happening. It's just, nope, nope, not happening. This always ends up happening with deadbeat parents. Like, I don't know if it's possible in my parents' case, they're hitting the age when they realize that they are going to need to have financial support and all. And I don't want to make it sound like I am not in any way, shape, or form supporting anyone in my family or anything like that. I don't want my parents homeless or destitute or whatever, even though I don't have a good relationship with them at all. Through my youngest brother, who I actually do get along with somewhat, I've set things up financially so that he doesn't. It's not something where, like, he's going to get wiped out trying to take care of our parents, kind of thing. So, like, I don't want to say it's like a trust, but it's financially, financially they are not going to be in a situation where they're homeless, kind of thing. But I also don't want them having any contact with my son. I don't want them to even know where I live, kind of thing. Mainly because of the dysfunction, the untreated mental illness, the drugs, the alcoholism, and the criminality, kind of thing. I don't know. It's just depressing when you see someone like Patrick. I don't hate Patrick. I'm sure there are people out there that really, really hate Patrick, and I'm sure if I try to talk Patrick, Patrick has in his head all these crazy scenarios and stuff about how I'm like this psycho, dangerous stalker kind of thing, and that I hate him or something. And honestly, Pat, if you ever do see this video, I don't hate you. I I couldn't possibly have the time or the energy to invest that into you. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't. I know that doesn't fit into your fantasy of how the world works and how you view yourself in the world, but I simply don't care enough. But I do feel one strong emotion about you, and that is pity. I think you're a very, very pathetic creature. I don't think of you any differently than when I'm volunteering at my local homeless shelter and I'm trying to talk to a guy that's shooting fent directly into his neck and he has open abscesses that I can smell. And he's wearing the same pair of jeans that he's worn for the last 3 months straight and they've never been washed. And I can smell the dried shit on his ass. I feel pity for that man. I don't trust him to be in my car. I wouldn't trust him to be in my home, and I wouldn't want him around my wife or my son. But I could still show the humanity, and I could still pity that man, and I can try to do what I can to give him the tools and the resources to try to get better. That's the little things that I do to try to make the world a better place. And Pat, I feel that I offer you the same thing. I might chuckle at your expense because you do post and tweet some of the dumbest hot takes that I've ever seen in my life, and I do find some of them kind of amusing and stuff. But at the end of the day, the only thing I feel for you is pity because you are a man who is trapped in a prison of your own making. Your hubris is a prison, and it's pathetic and sad. I realize that this isn't a funny video. It's not a ha-ha funny video. I'm not boisterous or anything like that. It's honestly because I kind of feel it. I'm in a funk, as the Germans say. I feel a little bit of das ennui. That is a joke. Ennui is a French term. That's going to go right over Pat's head if he ever sees this. I hope you're all doing well, and I hope if you're ever mindset, if you ever find yourself in the way that I find myself from time to time, where you're feeling like you're in a funk, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling alone, you're wishing that your wife and son didn't have to fly back to the other side of the United States, and you're not going to get to see them anytime soon. I hope that you are like me, that when you do get this way, you know how to deal with it. And if you don't know how to deal with it, I highly encourage you to seek out resources in your area. Talk therapy is a wonderful thing. It has saved my life I don't know how many times. It is the entire reason why I was able to get married after discovering the woman of my dreams. It was why I was able to get through engineering school. It was why I was able to come to terms with the fact that I was blown up in an IED and had countless surgeries and I lost my hearing. It got me through the shock and the re-traumatization of learning how to hear again. And then this week, with my hearing aids going up, I'm having to deal with the fact that for all intents and purposes, I'm deaf again. And it's hard. Life is hard. And we have to find a way to get through it. And what I believe is the important thing to do is to try to make the world a better place and to try to help out others. But I feel like I'm coming off as sounding like a complete and utter wuss and so on. I do wish and hope that everyone is doing well. And ultimately, Pat, if you're hearing this video, I hope one day you pull your head out of your ass. You go to therapy, possibly go to alcohol counseling, maybe learn some more effective means of dealing with stress and stuff rather than lashing out to complete strangers on the internet. I hope you all take care of each other. Ciao.